Hey y'all, welcome back to another video. In the spirit of my 2-year lock anniversary coming very soon, like next month, I really wanted to share some things with y'all that I have learned on my Microlocs journey. Well, not just Microlocs journey, but like DIY Microlocs journey, because whenever I started this journey, I had no idea what was what. I just kind of dived into it without really doing as much research as I should have. I really want to share with y'all some of the things that I have learned over the past almost 2 years about my DIY Microloc journey, and just things that I feel like might be helpful to know before you start. So today's video is going to be 5 things that you should know before you start your Microlocs journey. Before we get into the video, be sure to subscribe to my channel and check out the DIY Microlocs playlist that I have. I'll have it linked in the iCards. I don't know which side it's on. This is always a problem every single video. I'll have it in the iCards, and then I'll also have it in the link down below this video. So check out that DIY Microlocs playlist if you want to see my journey from start to where it is now. I've done monthly hair updates, Q&As, retightening sessions and stuff, so that might be helpful to you if you haven't already started your lock journey, or if you have and you just want to go back and reflect on it. You can find videos that correspond with the stage that you're in your lock journey. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the tips that I have. Tip number 1 would be to know your hair density and your hair texture. The reason why this is important is because it will play a major role in your results. Your hair density refers to the number of strands that you have on your head, and also how close those strands are together. This determines how thick or how thin your hair is. So before starting my lock journey, I didn't really anticipate how thick my hair was and the way that my Microlocs would look. I honestly thought that it would be kind of, not so much like pushed up against my head like this and flat, but I definitely did think that it was going to be a lot flatter than it is now, and it's not, because my hair density, I have a lot of strands on my head and they're really close together, so my hair is really thick. So that's just something to take into consideration before you start your locks. If you have a low hair density, I would really recommend that you go really small with your locks. You want as many locks as your head can have, because you don't want your lock to part ratio to be off. Whenever your lock to part ratio is off, you know, that's when you start to see a lot of spaces in your head and it looks very scalpy. And I'm not talking about the plucked chicken phase. This goes beyond the plucked chicken phase. This is how your hair is going to look if you have low hair density but bigger parts. So the higher your lock count, the thicker your hair will appear. So keep that in mind if you have low hair density. Now if you have a high hair density, you know, and you want a really high lock count, just know that your hair is going to look really thick. It's going to appear really thick because your hair is already thick, plus a lot of locks. It's going to be very voluminous. So if that's the look that you're going for, then I would go for a higher lock count. While we're talking about parts, if anybody's curious, I have around 645-ish locks, and this is how big my parts are. Tip number 2 is to think about how you're going to start your locks. Now there are many methods that you can use to start locks. The 2 that I'm the most familiar with though is 2-strand twist or braid locks. You can also do comb coils, and there are just plenty of other things, back combing. There's a ton of different methods that you can use, but I'm going to specifically be focusing on 2-strand twist and braid locks because I'm the most familiar with that. If anybody doesn't know, I actually started out all of my locks with just 2-strand twists, but then eventually as time went on, I decided to braid some of them, because within the first 1.5 years of my journey, I dealt with a lot of unraveling. So just keep in mind that if you start off with 2-strand twists, you have a greater chance of unraveling, but you also have more volume. Whereas if you start your locks off with braids, you will probably have little to no unraveling, but you'll have less volume. You'll just have to pick your battle and just decide which one is more important to you. I mean, at the end of the day, when your locks are mature, it's all gonna drop. But if you like volume and you want that initially, then I would definitely go with the 2-strand twist option. For comb coils, I'm not really too educated on that method for Microlocs with comb coils. If any of y'all have started your locks with comb coils, leave a comment down below. Tell us the pros or cons of starting your locks with comb coils. I'm just not going to speak on it because I don't know too much about that. Again, just make sure that you're aware twist equals volume and unraveling, but braids equals no unraveling and way less volume. The third thing that I want to talk about is the grid. So all of my DIYers, listen up. If you are starting your locks off by yourself, it is very important that you focus on the grid. Take as much time as you need to get your grid right, because your grid is going to be the foundation of your entire journey, and you want to make sure that that foundation is strong so that you can have a healthy, happy lock journey. Again, it's very important that you take your time and make sure that you are getting squares. You want perfect squares, or almost perfect. If you're doing it by yourself, it can be really hard to get perfect squares, but almost perfect squares. Whenever you're retightening your hair, you want to hit the middle of that square each rotation. Now if you have a rectangle or just elongated shapes at the base of your locks, then whenever you're retightening, I just feel like that would throw a lot of things off. So I would really try to get perfect squares. And for aesthetic purposes, whenever you have a really nice solid grid, you can pretty much style your locks any way you want. It's gonna look really polished, neat, and put together because your grid is bomb. The next thing that I want to talk about is the retightening process. With your reties, try your best to keep up with a schedule. I would say every 6 to 8 weeks is a good time frame. Try not to retighten your hair too often and too soon, because you don't want to create a lot of tension to your scalp. But you also don't want to wait too long in between reties, because if you're going too long in between your reties, then you'll have a whole bunch of new growth. If you want that perfect cylinder shaped lock, then it's really important that you keep up with your reties, because then you won't have many lumps and bumps. Kind of thin right here because you waited too long to retighten, and then here you waited the normal time. It'll just make your life a whole lot easier if you keep up with a schedule for your reties. So for retightens, I would really recommend the interlock method. I love the interlock method. I don't think that I would use any other method to maintain my hair but the interlock method. I actually have 2 videos showing how my mom retightened my hair. One of them is my very first retightening session, and the other one is one that we did kind of further along in my journey. I'll link those 2 videos in the cards and also down below in the description box. If you think about a clock, typically I like to go from 9 to 3, 6 to 12, 3 to 9, and then I always end, no matter what, 12 to 6. Whenever you end 12 to 6, that allows the lock to lay down flat instead of like going every which way, throwing up gang signs. You don't want that, trust me. I've experienced it. One time I ended off like 3 to 9, and you know, that lock was just like lifted off of my scalp, just going a whole nother way, and it just looked a mess. You don't want that. So just try to end 12 to 6. Now you really don't have to do a 4-point rotation. That's what I like to do. If you do a 4-point rotation, then it'll allow your lock to be more compact. If you do want more volume though, I would try a 3-point rotation. I would say if you decide to go with a 3-point rotation, I would still end from 12 to 6. Like I said before, I have 2 whole videos dedicated to retightening hair, so if you want to watch those, then I'll have it linked in the description and in the eye, so you can watch them. My last tip would be over the products that you decide to use in your locks. You try your best to stick to natural based products. Try to stick to natural oils. My favorite oils to use are jojoba oil, coconut oil, vitamin E oil, rosemary oil. Rosemary, vitamin E, and jojoba are my top 3 favorite oils, and they're natural. The last thing that I want to go over is conditioning. I know that in the beginning of my lock journey, I was just so against conditioning because all of the videos that I watched, the consensus seems to be that conditioning is the devil and that you should not be conditioning your hair at all. But as I have grown in my lock journey, I want to say that I don't think that that's true. I feel like you can condition your hair, but just don't do it every single wash day. And whenever you do decide to do it, please be sure to rinse it all out, because that is what actually causes the buildup. Not the conditioner itself, but just failing to wash the product out completely. That's what causes the buildup. I forgot what that person's name was, but she was a loctician, and she was just saying that a lot of locticians tell their clients not to condition their hair because they're too lazy to wash it all out, and then that's how the product just builds up. So I would recommend conditioning your hair. I condition my hair like twice a month, so every other wash day, never like every single wash day. It's not a weekly thing for me, but I have to say I have noticed a difference in my hair. It just looks a lot better to me, and it feels a lot better to me now that I have implemented conditioning into my wash day routine. So I would give it a try. Don't be afraid of conditioning your hair. Just be sure to wash all the products out. Going along with that, I just want to say that you know your hair better than anybody. Any loctician, any YouTuber, any hair blogger, you know your hair better than anyone. It's fine to take advice from people and to listen to their stories and listen to their journeys, but be sure that you are not strictly following their hair care regimen, because your hair might be different from theirs. Just remember that you know your hair better than anyone, and you know what your hair needs. I just want to end off with that. Hopefully this video helped y'all out. Let me know if you have any more helpful advice that you can leave in the comments below for people that are starting their lock journeys out, or if you already started. And you know, we all need advice, we all need help out here, come on now. So if you have any advice, don't be afraid to share it. Yeah, so that's all for today's video. Hopefully y'all enjoyed. I'll talk to y'all in my next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm out.
If you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're doing it wrong.
One of the best to ever do it.